I'm calling this assembly to order. My name is William McGill, and I'm seated on this platform because I was the chancellor at UCSD when this college was born. That is, I think it's true that I'm the only one in this audience who was actually present in the room on the day that Angela Davis handed the Lumumba Zapata demands to the chancellor. I was the chancellor. Joe Watson was there, but they weren't aiming at him. We had a long struggle over Lumumba Zapata. Our side trying to convince the students that this revolutionary name would not sit well with the governor of California, who at that time was Ronald Reagan. And we compromised. The students got their college, and we got the name, which was to be Third College. And it stayed that way for many years until the right moment came. The right moment came when, of course, a very great man passed away, Thurgood Marshall. And in the spirit of the way we do things, we now seek to memorialize his memory. If I had a choice, I'd much rather have Mr. Marshall back with all of the humanity and humor and joy with which he transformed our lives. But that isn't given to us, so we're going to memorialize him here in this college, and we kick it off today.
Dr. Wright Edelman, President Peldeson, Provost Lytle, Regent Davies, Representative Schenck, members of the faculty, staff, students, and friends. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you here today, for this is a very special occasion for the college and for the University of California at San Diego. I regret that Mrs. Thurgood Marshall is ill, and therefore that neither she nor her son, Thurgood Marshall Jr., are able to attend the ceremonies today as they had planned to. They were looking forward to this dedication, and we were looking forward to having them visit the campus. I wish Mrs. Thurgood Marshall a speedy recovery. From the founding of UCSD nearly 35 years ago, the college system has provided the focus of undergraduate life and education. UCSD's colleges exist to provide a positive and intimate experience for undergraduates in the context of the hustle and bustle of a large research university. The colleges hopefully replace what might be a crowd with a community. Each of our 5 colleges has its own particular identity. This college, the third college established at UCSD, has from its beginnings focused on the recognition of diversity and the attendant questions of social justice and equality. That vision will remain at its core as today we dedicate it as Thurgood Marshall College. As much as any name in 20th century American history, that of Thurgood Marshall is associated with the pursuit of justice for all Americans. As you all know, almost exactly 40 years ago, Thurgood Marshall successfully argued Brown versus Board of Education, the landmark case establishing the principle of racial justice in this nation. It was no accident that Brown versus the Board was a case about education. Education for Marshall was a keystone in the foundation of justice, of social justice. No matter on what side of the bench he stood, Justice Marshall consistently argued for what he called, to quote him, the close relationship between education and some of our most basic constitutional values, end of quote. In his dissenting opinion in San Antonio School District versus Rodriguez, he insisted that, to quote again, education serves the essential function of instilling in our young an understanding of and appreciation for the principles and operation of our governmental processes. He understood that the exercise of our rights rested on an informed and educated citizenry. I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a personal anecdote. As many of you may know, I served as director of the National Science Foundation under President Carter. One of my very long-term friends, a colleague in Washington, was David Bazelon, judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals, one of the great justices in American history. In the spring of 1980, after it had been announced that I was coming to UCSD as Chancellor, I got a call from David Bazelon, and he said, "Let's have lunch together," and I readily agreed. And on the appointed day, he came by to pick me up, and we got in the car. He said something about picking up two other friends, and we sped up towards Capitol Hill. And the next thing I knew, we were entering the back driveway of the Supreme Court, and two individuals popped into the car. One was Justice Brenner, and the other was Supreme Court Justice Marshall. We went off to a restaurant in the northeast section of Washington, D.C., and it wasn't really a restaurant. It was really just a small little back room on a store, and apparently the Supreme Court justices often went there to have lunch as a way of being alone in the surrounding that they felt comfortable in. And once we sat down, Justice Marshall turned to me and he said, "So you want to live in that big white house?" And I was a little stunned, and I thought, what could David Bazelon have said to him? Did he think that I was interested in being President of the United States, or just what? And I said something, and he said, "Oh, no, I mean, you're going to live in the Chancellor's house out at the University of California at San Diego. I've never seen such a big white house, and it's perfectly located overlooking the Pacific Ocean." And after I recovered from that remark, I asked him, well, how did he know so much about the Chancellor's house? And he said, well, he'd been to the university. He'd been the dedication speaker at the dedication of Warren College, and he pointed out to me how highly he regarded Chief Justice Warren and how pleased he was that UCSD had named a college after Justice Warren. I think I can assure everyone here today, based on that conversation, that Thurgood Marshall would have been very, very pleased to have this college named in his honor. He was clearly very closely involved with Justice Warren. They both loved and respected each other, and the idea that the third college should be named after Thurgood Marshall and the fourth college after Justice Warren, I think will sit very well. No name, I think, could be more appropriate to this college than that of Justice Thurgood Marshall. It's my pleasure to open these ceremonies, and I now turn the podium over to the Provost of the college, Cecil Lytle.